नाजो अंदाज से कहते हैं कि जीना होगा, जहर भी देते हैं तो कहते हैं कि पीना होगा। जब मैं पीता हूं तो कहते हैं कि मरता भी नहीं, जब मैं मरता हूं तो कहते हैं कि जीना होगा।
वाह।
मेरे नामुराद जुनून का है इलाज कोई तो मौत है, जो दवा के नाम पे जहर दे उसी चारागर की तलाश है। न तो कारवां की तलाश है, न तो हमसफर की तलाश है। मेरे शौक खाना खराब को तेरी रह गुजर की तलाश है। Those are the beautiful lines, poetic marvels by one of the greatest poets of our era, Sahir Ludhiani. Although therefore it's a very, very popular Qawwali, but Qawwali or whether Ghazal or Geet, poetry ultimately, if it is metaphoric, it is deep, it has insights, it is profound, it's elevating, it touches your heart. So who can ever beat Sahir Ludhianvi? Gandhiji used to say that character of a man symbolizes when there is a unification between his external and internal self. I only find, although I have respect for every poet of this Indian subcontinent, especially in 20th century, great poets were there. But Sahir is the only person who fits into this definition. There was a unification of his personality. In and out were the same. So with that wonderful, Sahir poetry, we want to begin this journey. I welcome you all. I'm your host, Jugal Koul, to the 86th historic illustrious show of Shetalnath Conversations. Uh, it gives me great delight to have a rendezvous with all of you again on this 86th, beckoning conversation, which is going to unfold today. And this is a Sunday, and Sunday is a great day. We are having fun. I hope this transition of climate, transition of season must be fine at your end, wherever you are across the globe. Today, we are going to telecast and broadcast only on this YouTube channel. So many of you may not, who are not able to approach. I'll be just sending them the dispatches very soon, within 5-10 minutes after I introduce the today's guest. Sometimes I feel, the discovery of India, especially Sham Babu had directed it so well, irrespective of whatever its context and its content is. But certainly J.N. Nehru was a great prose writer, and he had a great insights. He was a wonderful writer, and he might have his own perception. But the book is so great, and its shooting, its visualization on the cellulite, on the television by Shambabu. We people in the art, theatre, television, film fraternity call him Shambabu. Sham Benegal Sahab, the genius of Sham Benegal, had made it wonderful. Its ambience, its rapture, its romance, through this medium of television was so great, especially the classical age when he talks about the classical age of India. Classical age, there's an extended age of classical age. We can go to the Ujjaini also. Ujjaini was also classical age, but they said that Gupta period, not Gupta, not the caste Gupta period. Gupta period, Maurya period, 6th, 7th, 8th century, they were known as classical age. So we have like Ice Age, classical ages are also different in different time zones and around the globe. But we had our own classical age. Uh, Kashmir has always been had a geographical situation advantage, and in the country of in this great country, great civilization of India, as it was a kind of situated where people from here, the knowledge from here, went to the rest part of the world, especially in the Far East, China, Mongolia, Caspian Sea, even Russia for that matter, and Europe. As per the, great, the scientists, they say that 70,000 years ago, the 100,000 and more number people came from Africa to India, because India it was a place in those times when there was an ice age. Survival was very difficult in rest of the world. They came down to India, and after from India, that's not what the new research says. From India, it scattered into the rest of the world. India was a very congenial place geographically, and from here they went to Iran, they went to Russia, they went to Europe. So anyway, the civilization begins with it. But that's for another day. That's for the researchers to prove upon it. But certainly, many things from India, especially in the later years, in the millennia, very close by millennia, we have seen the people from here. There are many, many signatures and signs. And we had Subhash Kak here, and he had given a very detailed description. He's a great Indologist. He gave a great description of, Rodonov and other gods, Indra and other gods being worshipped in the Europe. They came from India. So in a way, it was a Silicon Valley. The entire Indian Kashmir was the core. It was the lab. It was the majestic lab of the Silicon Valley. Probably the climate environment was so good. Like nowadays, people go to America. People used to come to India, and especially we have many excavations going on. But it is a very senile speed that our archaeologists move. But that is the past. That is what has happened in the past. When we talk about Kashmir, we have this classical age of Kashmir. I mean, it can also be extended till Kotarani comes in. But when we talk about classical age, we definitely talk about Lalta Aditya. I mean, it is very unfair to compare him with the Alexander, because I don't know whether Alexander had come to India or not. Alexander, and there was a basic difference between the two great personalities. Although he was also an expansionist, but he didn't stay. He didn't annex the areas. He brought the wealth of courtiers, brilliant minds, and other things from the rest part of the world, and helped the natives to develop. And he was a man of character. It was always a multicultural, multi-spiritual society in India, and Kashmir was not different. Buddha and Shiva, they were the same. They were considered to be the same. Buddha was considered to be the Vishnu avatar or something like that. There are many stories, and we have many literatures from Adikal, from Ashoka the Great, Kanishka, and the later years, Lalta Aditya's period, and Avanti Varman, and we have the people like Shamendra, Somadeva, Vasugupta, and people from here who went into the rest of India, Balbana, and this Sharangadev, the great musician, the Sangeet Ratnakar, who was the creator of Sangeet, and many a number of people. So we have already been deliberating upon these personalities and the people. And there are many. There is a one particular beautiful story about which Kalhana tells in Raj Sarangani, that is the two dancing girls. Because invisibly, when we research further, apart from some songs, peasantry songs, we don't have a very big dancing tradition prevalent nowadays, visible in our folk memory nowadays, apart from Bandpatra and other things. There's another discussion about that. But what I found is that there was an incident narrated that two girls at a particular time in a day used to come and dance in a particular place, and Lalta Datta's time probably, and the people went, and Raja sent people to inquire about and research about what is all about. And finally, I mean, after a lot of research and probing into the situation, they could really gather that it was basically, the underneath that particular place where these two girls used to dance, there was a ruin, very old ruin. It was a Rama and Lakshmana
देखो
temple.
बेटे चल रहा है मैं
It was a Rama and
भागना
Lakshmana
नहीं
temple,
मुझे हेल्प करना
and it was a wonderful temple over there. And so somewhere down the line, it conveys the dancing tradition was also there, and it was all interconnected. Not only Indian, in the Indian part of this world, but rest part of the world also. But there are many theosophies, many things which we have studied, which our research, which I have a discussion with the researchers and the scholars of great eminence. But today we are going to, I mean, just begin with a wonderful topic. We are going to peep into the Sanskrit age of Kashmir, and what more better way to, to visualize that particular era is understanding and go through the genesis of its, the language spoken in those times, the linguistic dimension of those times, the Sanskrit age, and literary dimensions of those times. And we have a very eminent personality, one of the tallest living legend of our times, of Kashmir, Professor Shashi Shekhar Toshkhani ji, with us. He's a very reputed, renowned author. He's a cultural historian, critic, art cultural critic, and poet, and he has many wonderful books. So it's really wonderful to have a guest of that eminence. We already had one particular session with this great man, but today we are fortunate that he's again into our studio. He's on the other side of the age, but then again, I think his vitality, his treasure trove, he holds back into his subconsciousness that needs to be told and reached to the people in general, not only for the sake of posterity, for the sake of getting great insights about our wonderful past. and have a very critical analysis about past. So that is how it is. So before we begin, I'd like to play a small video in the honor of today's topic, the classical, the period, the Sanskrit literary, the Sanskrit period literary and linguistic, culture of those times. Thank you very much. So let's welcome to the studio one of the most respected, the tallest living legend of Kashmir, cultural, and I don't think there is any other authority in parallel to him in the contemporary times, especially when we talk about the cultural history of Kashmir, which encapsulates all the dimensions of art, literature, music. I have read him many times, and I'm really mesmerized not only by his writing style, by his precision, by his intelligence, but also by the amount of scholarly research he deeply involves himself to be. He is really, really, genuinely a great personality to have a conversation with in our studio. So let us welcome with great warmth and respect Professor Shashi Shekhar Toshkhani ji into our studio. Toshkhani Saab, you are welcome into 86th illustrious historic show of Sheetalnath Conversation. It's a great honor to have you with us today.
So kind of you to invite me to speak once again and participate in this wonderful conversation. Let's see how it goes.
It goes very well, sir. It goes with your blessings. It will go very well. You look very smart and very handsome today. Very immaculately dressed, and color is very
There's
calm.
no particular reason for that.
But there may not be any particular reason, but the outlet at this outset it looks very fascinating. I mean, I think still the damsels could fall by this color. Anyway, that was
No,
in the
I
lighter humor.
see.
Lighter
Last time
humor.
when I spoke, I did leave out certain things. I wanted to say many things, but there was no
Yes,
time
certainly,
left
certainly
for the
will
long.
come one day.
It took a
Yeah, but
long time for us to have our
yeah.
conversation that time. So now today I may
To make it,
just try to fill in the gaps.
yes,
Just to
sir.
fill
Please,
in the
you're.
gaps, I am not going to say give deliver a whole lecture on
I don't understand, sir.
the
Whatever
subject
you
that
say,
we
sir.
have. But we have certain misconceptions about
I will just,
Sanskrit
we'll just come to that.
Sanskrit and its culture in Kashmir.
Toshkani
We have
sahab,
a lot
Toshkani
of
sahab,
misconceptions,
Toshkhani
and
sahab.
we do not.
Just a minute.
Yeah, yeah,
We'll,
yeah.
we'll come to that. We'll come to that. But in our, as per the structure of our program, we normally in our first segment for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, we go to the
Yes, sir.
Kashmir,
Yes,
the
sir.
days
Yes,
you
sir.
witness in the Kashmir. So especially
Right,
today, we
sir.
would like to know more about. I mean, Shrikant, Professor Shrikant Toshkhani Sahab, the great personality who was responsible for so many social, artistic, cultural, and literary. He was a pioneer of all these aspects in Kashmir. We want to really know about. Let's begin with your father. Let's have a complete tribute to your father for 5 or 7 minutes about his personality, his work, and your witness of your father, and many more things you want to tell about Kashmir as you witnessed. After that, we'll come to the today's topic. Right, sir?
Last time when I spoke, I left out many things about him also, because.
Yes.
But now I want to tell you certain, just to give a better
Please,
image,
sir.
a broader
Please, sir.
image of why of the man, because I think people have forgotten him over time, and his
Right, sir.
contribution to not only Kashmiri education of Kashmiri women, but also to Kashmiri language, linguistics, and also Kashmiri culture. You see,
Right, sir.
his speeches on Kashmiri women's education and on the cultural situation in Kashmir were published in Japanese and French newspapers, Le Monde, and also in there was, I don't remember the name of the Japanese newspaper, but it was published there also. They were published. They were so enamored. They were so impressed by what he said and the way he put his thoughts. But in Kashmir, things were not proceeding exactly how he wished them. Now, for instance, I'm talking of the gaps. There's nobody who says that he was the first person to write a novel in Kashmiri.
Yes.
He wrote the very first novel in Kashmiri called Leela. Now, and Leela was also about the same subject, about the position, about the state of women, about their sorrows, about their woes, and particularly about the lack of education, which was the root of it all. So he wrote Leela, in which a lady cannot afford, or she was not allowed to be educated to learn the alphabet or even. But then her son was married, see, at that time, she wanted her son to be fully educated and to be a part of the tradition, the glorious tradition for which Kashmir is distinguished. So Leela was the first, I still remember, and the sentences were so simple, short, and yet emotionally charged to show what happened to the women of Kashmir. Because generally said, and even today, there are many people who say we had wonderful women, we had cockneys and all those. See, they just dedicated all their life to looking after the family and to all the affairs of her husband and her children and all that. They don't understand what they've gone through. It was a period when not only they were not allowed to read, but there were some women who were not even sent to the hospital when their health deteriorated. You see, there was total discrimination, and this total discrimination and the restlessness to get over it all is reflected in this first novel of Kashmiri, Leela. I have only some portions of it left with me. I think one chapter or so, and
Right.
those chapter is also moth eaten. But it was nonetheless the first Kashmiri novel ever written. But because it was written perhaps in the Devanagari script, and he was a supporter of the Devanagari script for Kashmiri, he was among the first people. He devised the diacritical marks for Kashmiri written in Devanagari script, and those that reformed Kashmir's Devanagari, that script was used by people like Master Zindakar.
Right.
He used the same script, the script that was devised by my father, Professor Toshkhani. So, and others also, those who followed him. And he also brought out, he was also the editor for the Kashmiri section of a publication, of a monthly, I don't know, monthly or 3 monthly publication from Lahore, Bahar Gulshan Kashmir or Bahar Kashmir. So he brought out, he acted the Kashmiri part of it in this changed, this reformed Devanagari script. So these contributions in themselves are very important and they mean something at that point of time. It was later that the whole thing was this matter of script and other things was resurrected, and what followed is known to everyone. But he started it all, and it was accepted. And even today, the present Kashmiri Devanagari script has much has borrowed much from that script. You see, particularly the parallel bar about the headstroke, the vertical bar about the headstroke, and other marks below the letter. So he contributed to that also, and he also contributed to the understanding of the language itself. I think last time I did say that he went to Gilgit and he went to other Dard areas to understand and to examine and to explore whether there really is any connection between Kashmiri and the Dardic languages and Shina in particular. And he found that all this was actually only in sort of a thesis. It was just a thesis, it was just an imagination, because this was based on the information that Grierson got from his informants. And the informants perhaps did not know much. So they just, whatever they said, he accepted and he incorporated it in his theory about the origin and development of the Kashmiri language. So he was among the first people to contradict and to reject in toto the theory of origin of the Kashmiri language as propounded by Grierson. Grierson created a lot of misunderstanding and confusion. The thing is that the so-called Dardic words that were used that are used in Kashmiri also, that are supposed to be cognitive, actually belong to Sanskrit. And there are people who are not prepared to accept, though majors to these linguists, all of them agree that eventually and basically the Arctic languages, especially Shina, is a Vedic language. It's only that it is the Vedic language with the whole vocabulary that's from the Vedic speech. But it didn't develop as it developed in other parts of India. I mean, it didn't pass through the stages of mid Indo-Aryan, the Prakrit and Abram stages, and so it just, you see, without that, actually it's a Dardik also is a very say, misnomer, is that actually they were, what the thing was that they were just a group of languages. And they didn't have really, the Dardic languages did not really have actually intimately, they were not connected intimately as a linguistic group. So my father pointed out to all this, and he showed that the Shina words in supposedly Shina words in Kashmiri are not, you see, because they were Kashmiri was has originated from Kashmiri, but because both the languages have their origin in the Vedic speech, in the old Indo-Aryan speech, or any dialect akin to that. I mean, there were several Prakrits. It is said that the Vedic speech had three kinds of Prakrit, and from those Prakrits, you see, the other Indian languages emerged. So, and they also ignore the great similarities, not only lexical similarities, but also morphological similarities between Kashmiri and other Indian languages. They totally ignored and deliberately ignored. And now there are people who say that Kashmiri is akin to some Icelandic languages. So people from Iceland jumped to influence and people spoke Kashmiri. So I'm going to say a word about this also when we start our regular discussion or our regular conversation. But I'm talking of my father. So he was the first to point out these things. And he suffered a lot because of this thing, because he also produced, or whatever you may call it, the first Kashmiri film. The first Kashmiri film again was based on the plight of Kashmiri women. But it was not allowed by the government. So there were certain conservative sections of the society who didn't like things like widow remarriage and reforms and other things, and who didn't like to give women, the Kashmiri women, their rights. That's more important. They didn't like, wanted. So they opposed the film, and my father was even pelted with stones. Then it was, see, Wakefield, I think he was the man in charge at the residence of the British residence office, and perhaps he was the minister in charge. He demoted my father from professorship to just a headmaster's post for 2 years. He suffered because of this thing, and people don't know that he has undergone all this thing. Later on, of course, he established the schools, the Women's Welfare Trust. He established the Women's Welfare Trust with the help of not nobody can do it alone. Well, there were other people. He was the founder president, and there was Pandit Aftab Kaul, Nizamat, and other people also. And then came Margaret Cousins. Margaret Cousins was a British lady who fought for the voting rights of Indian women at that time of point of time. It was much later that Annie Besant also joined this movement, and my father's slogan was each one teach one. So he started this thing, and he also started the Seva Sadan, so which taught skills to unskilled women, skills to women who had who lost their kith and kin. So who didn't have economic support, so that they could be economically independent. And imagine it, at that point of time, he wrote a book even on Kashmiri letter writing, correspondence, how to write letters in Kashmiri at that time. And he also wrote books personally. He wrote textbooks on subjects like arithmetic, on geography. I think history he didn't touch, but these two subjects I am sure, because I have got his one copy of his Granth Vyad, a book about this arithmetic. Then what is plus and what is minus and what is multiplication and how to do it all in very simple language, not using all those obnoxious words which are used now to instead of the simple Kashmiri, easily understood vocabulary. So he wrote it in that language, in that vocabulary. He explained things and produced these textbooks for the schools conducted by Women's Welfare Trust. And one of them, as you all know, I think, was Vasanta School, which is still there. So it was said that Vasanta School was named after Annie Besant. Well, I don't deny that Annie Besant was there, but it is Vasanta was the name of my eldest sister,
Okay.
who was one of the first students who joined the school. When all these facts are all hidden or not known or deliberately, see, they are avoided, put under the carpet. So that way, apart from his uh, other aspects of his personality, that he was an ardent follower of Krishnamurti in those ages, in those times, Krishnamurti and he were born in the same year, though they did not pass away in the same year. Krishnamurti passed away much later, but they were, see, almost on very close and intimate terms. And at that time, my father, first he was a theosophist, and that's how he came into contact with Annie Besant, because Annie Besant was a theosophist. And when Krishnamurti rejected the claim of Annie Besant that he was a world teacher, my father shifted this to Krishnamurti, and whose first thing was that change is right now. Change does not come later, and there is no need of a guru or other thing people. You can't condition your mind with what other people have to say. You can't condition. You can't win, understand truth, or you can't win freedom, or you can't go ahead with your realization of what reality is if you have the other man. Uh, just a moment. The battery is not working. Just a moment. Just a
No
moment.
problem.
Just a moment, sir. The battery is exhausted. Shashwat, just a moment. Just for a moment. The battery is not working. शाश्वत ये तुमने क्या कर दिया भाई बैटरी नहीं चलती है इसकी तुमको बताया खत्म हो गया बैटरी कैसे लगेगी अब इसकी जैसे मोहम्मद
नहीं चल
सर
तो रहा, आपका शो चल रहा है यहाँ पे. इट इज आई कैन सी एवरीथिंग फाइन.
हाँ हाँ
आपका
हाँ
शो
हाँ
चल रहा
हाँ
है प्रोफेसर साहब. योर शो इज गोइंग ऑन
हाँ
वेरी
हाँ
वेल.
नहीं यहाँ पर आ गया मुझे यहाँ आ गया कि बैटरी चल नहीं रही
वहां
है
पे ही हैज टू
तो
कनेक्ट सम बैटरी सोर्स, देन इट इज फाइन. कोई
so
सोर्स से
I
कनेक्ट
don't
कर
want
देगा.
no because
यू कैन
this
कंटिन्यू इन
happened
द
to
मीन
me
टाइम.
sorry sir this happened to me once and I had to
डजंट मैटर
give up
सर,
the
डजंट.
show.
आप कंटिन्यू करिए. यू कंटिन्यू, ही विल डू हिज,
Okay,
मैनेज हिज जॉब.
okay, sir. So I was saying something about Krishnamurti and all that, and he said that change is now. See, and he said that you don't need a guru for that change. So he didn't believe in gurudom, he didn't believe in many things, and he was very forthright and very deep, a deep contemplative observation on the human nature and the human situation. And my father was very ardent follower of this great philosopher throughout his life, and he in fact, wherever Krishnamurti went within India, my father would go and listen to his lectures, and he wanted me also, but I had my reservations about it. But still, I have a great, you see, I can't say just respect, but I think certainly I am overwhelmed by the greatness of a great of the person like, of a philosopher like, of an expounder of truth like Krishnamurti, which I got from my father. So these were some of the aspects of my father's personality. One was my father as a linguist, my father as an educationist, and then my father as a philosopher. He was professor of philosophy afterwards. After all, you see, he did his MA in philosophy from Allahabad. Then he did his LLB from Agra, and then for a while he was also a pleader. He was also a lawyer. Then he gave up that law business when he became a professor. When he was appointed as he was directly appointed as a professor. He
Okay.
was no, he didn't rise to become a professor from any lower rank. So he was became a professor, and but then things were like that, and I have, in fact, borrowed much from him, learned much from him, and also did have many differences with him. So that's about my father.
Yeah, yeah. Tell us something about. We want to know. We'll let the viewers know about something about that first film, Leela, and Jagannath Saki was. There were some actors. Tell us something about the cast, crew, story,
Yes,
content.
there was Jagannath Saki was, of course, yeah, you know about it. You know about, but I'm not so, I mean, well aware. I
And who
only
are
know
the
that
actors? Script. Who he wrote the script and who produced it, and
he
what were
not
the other
only
time?
wrote the script, he also produced. It's wrong to say that he. See, there are people who try to say that it was not produced by him. There are some people who want to hijack that he was a writer, hijack everything. I can't
Okay.
help it. And of course, Jagannath Saki was there as the lead actor. There's no doubt about it. That I know. That much I know. But the other thing is that it was the first film and then it was buried.
Okay.
You see, it had a stillbirth. Nothing followed, nothing came out of it. But still, he did, you see, venture that far in those ages when nobody could think of producing a film on women's plight in Kashmir. So he did it. And Leela, of course, was a novel. Leela was a
Leela was
novel
based
written
on the
in a
novel. Yeah.
yes, Leela was a novel. And Leela was a novel and it was very beautifully written. I have just one small chapter with me, but it is small written and the whole thing cannot be coherently read.
Okay.
But I still know that it begins with the marriage of Leela's son when there was music in the
So,
court
yeah.
outside, courtyard outside. The music began, and Jangi Baj he has written.
So
So
there's a
Jangi Baj was on.
Jangi
So
Bazos
it's a
Wazan. Bajos
Jangi
Wazan.
Baj means the military. I mean, there was actually no military orchestra, but
Yeah.
the band at that time, people thought that that orchestra and band, was a show of the military.
Okay.
So it was arranged by the military. So it was
But
Jangi Baj.
one thing I want to know, if the Dardik was not a Dardik, your father, as he subscribed that Dardik, this is a misnomer, that Kashmir was the outcome of Dardik language, because Dardik was pre-existent in those times. But I mean, then where do we locate actually the root of Kashmiri language? Just for the sake of small
I
bit,
very
yeah.
no, we can later on discuss it, but even now we can say Kashmiri has evolved from the old Indo-Aryan or the Vedic speech or a dialect of it very close to the Vedic speech, just as other Indian languages have evolved.
Hmm.
You see, it has passed through the two stages, the stage of mid Indo Aryan, as it is called, the mid Indo Aryan stage when things change, when there were phonetic changes, when there were also some, but Kashmiri still retains the morphology of Sanskrit. Kashmiri still retains the much of the lexical energy that it got from Sanskrit, from
Hmm.
all Vedic speech, you can say. You see, and see a person like there's a not Grayson, the other fellow George. What
Buller.
was his name?
Buller.
Buller. He said that study of Kashmiri is essential to learn about the development of other Indo-Aryan languages, modern Indo-Aryan languages.
What
You
about
see,
Pishachi? Brahm Katha.
Shachi, again I
Pishachi.
see,
Gonads.
Grierson has confused Peshachi with Dardik.
Oh,
Peshachi's language, see, Prakrit. There were six kinds of Peshachi Prakrits. And Peshachi was not something limited to Kashmir alone. It
okay.
was supposed to be a language that spread over the entire country.
Hmm.
And in fact, it was a Prakrit language above all. It was not, but I have personally studied the grammar of Peshachi as given by some of the Peshachi, these grammarians,
Okay.
uh, Hem, क्या है उसका हेमराज or others. I mean, I have
Hemraja.
studied them personally and I have found that morphologically it's totally different. Lexically, it may borrow. And in fact, it is not only this man, you know, the great scholar, this Pollock's,
Yes.
क्या उसका नाम है पोलॉक का तो he very clearly said that Peshachi is a joker in the pack.
Yeah, but
Peshachi is a.
just
Now,
just
I'm
for
going to speak. Just a
yes, yes,
minute.
please.
A joker in the pack, that means anybody can make anything of it. And it was just whether there was such a language or not, whether there was something like this. जो लिखा है इसने
What about the Katha Sarit
I'm
Sagar
talking. I'm
source?
coming. Yeah.
Brat
Katha
Katha.
Sarit
Brat
Sagar
Katha.
is by she. It was Gunad.
Gonad.
Gunad did not belong to Kashmir. First of all, it's a
Okay.
very great misconception, and people from some people, I don't call them fake scholars, but I just call them that they are ignorant people, ignorant scholars, deliberately ignorant, trying to flaunt themselves as scholars. They said that Kashmiri has some words. It was a Kashtavari Prakrit. No, Kashtavari language has many words which are used in Kashmiri, and it's almost the same language,
Same
except
language.
certain
Same language.
differences. It's almost the same language
Almost same.
as today's
Almost.
Kashmiri, with a little difference. And it has many of the secrets of the development of Kashmiri language. You see, you can get it from Kashtawari. So it was not a Kashtawari dialect. What is actually the case? There were 18 regional languages in India. There's a book, Jain work of poetry, Leela Vai Kaha, Leelavati Katha, in which there are, she said that there were 18 regional languages. Desha Bhasha. Desha Bhasha means regional languages which were prevalent in Kashmir. 18 Desha Bhasha. And one of them was Kashmiri. And the first person, the first man to name Kashmiri as Kashmiri was this writer of this Nuhi Sifar, the famous Sufi, what was his name? Musician and writer. क्या नाम था उसका?
Contemporary? Who's contemporary?
जी जी.
His contemporary of whom? The writer you are talking
No,
about?
कंटेम्परेरी वो उस वक्त था ना जो म्यूजिक में भी बाकी खुसरो, अमीर खुसरो.
Amir Khusro.
Amir
Yes.
Khusro was the first to name Kashmiri as Kashmiri. Otherwise, you see, it was called Desa Bhasha. I have read there's a book by Shitikant, supposed to be one of the earliest books to have been written, highlighting, showing, presenting, or projecting the written form of Kashmiri. Shitikant's Mahanai Prakash. I have Shitikant's Mahanai Prakash.
Because
And
Maharaj Prakash.
Shitikant's Mahanai Prakash has called his language this Desha Bhasha. Desha Bhasha, what kind? A Desha Bhasha understood by all. The regional language understood by all. Sarva Gochar Desha Bhasha. Sarva Gochar means understood by everyone. It was a language understood. He calls his language, he describes his language as Athochit Ruchitam Maya. There is Ruchitam Niti Desha Bhashaya. I have written a niti, I have not written a nuti. Sarva Gocharaya Desha Bhash. I have written a nuti. I have written a hymn in a language, in the regional language, understandable to all. So he called it Desha Bhasha. So did or even in Maharashtra Prakrit was called a Desh Bhasha, even other Prakrits were called Desh Bhasha. There were 18 kinds of Desh Bhasha, and in this Leelavai Kaha, this giant poetic work is basically a narrative work. So it has shown people assembling in a marketplace in central India, say a place like Gwalior or somewhere in Madhya Pradesh, and each of them speaking in their own dialect. And among those people was also a man from Kashmir speaking in his dialect. I mean, this is written in Leelavai Kaha. Otherwise, it is Sarva Gocharya Desha Bhasha. It is the regional language understood by all. And this regional language has come via development through the Mid-Indo-Aryan. It follows almost the same phonetic rules that other Indian languages, which have also derived from Mid-Indo-Aryan, which have also derived from Prakrit and Abhramsh. You see, she has developed the same way, the same lines of development. I can discuss it at length also if you want. But
Yes, no. We'll move ahead. Let's come to today's topic. So that's a very interesting, wonderful thing.
So Kashmiri was a I
Yes.
was going to say something about it. You see, Kashmiri Sanskrit was a spoken language in Kashmir. This is written by no other person than Kalhan himself. It was a
That's
spoken language. I go to that because that is why
What
from
about
I wanted to begin. You see, you go through the Nilmat Puran. Everybody has to begin from the beginning, and we all begin with the
just
Nilmat
for
Puran.
just a minute, Professor Saab, I would like to ask one thing. To me, as
Ah,
a commoner, I'm not a scholar like you. There are
ah,
many thousands like me who are very ordinary in their
बताइए.
understanding of this ancient heritage of Kashmir, the literature, story of literature. Because when we talk about the classical age, let's not talk classical, we talk about the Sanskrit age, and you very well defined in your introductory note the contribution of your father in understanding the syntax and the language of Sanskrit, which was practiced in those days, which had no connection with Dardik or Peshachi or any other language. But when we come to in the historical perspective, to move this session forward, to propel this session forward, when we talk about in the historical perspective, we certainly move around and we see that there is a pre-Ashoka era, and from Ashoka era to the later part of the classical ages, where Lalita Aditya Muktapedia, 8th century, he comes in, and in between there's a lot much 6 7 centuries are bygone. So today we are supposed to know from you about the literary and the linguistic practices of that particular era. Are you going back to before those centuries, adding on to those centuries, or the extended period up to Kalana's period?
You
What is
see,
the
we
scope of
have to
today's program?
we
Yeah,
have to depend on two kinds of evidences.
right.
One is the literary evidence, and second is archaeological evidence.
Hmm.
For written language, we have to depend on the literary evidence. And when we talk of the literary evidence, the earliest evidence we have got is that of the Nilmat Puran. And when we go to Nilmat Puran, I think you must have gone through that those verses where the author of the Puran describes Prekshadan. Prekshadan means offer of a stage performance, of a theatrical performance. There's Prekshadan. So this was one of the practices prevalent in ancient Kashmir to which the author of Nilmat Puran has referred. People, the theatrical companies, there were no companies, theater workers would go from place to place, and they are enjoined upon to be provided with all the facilities so that they can give a stage, offer a stage performance as an offering to the people. So, and the people in return have to look to their facilities, look to the place where they will stage their drama, look to the funding aspect of it, look to the stability of the whole thing, whether it is where it can be staged and whatnot, logistics and other they have to take care of all that. So this is what is written in the Nilmat Puran, that the theater workers would make an offerance of a theatrical performance, was called prekshadan. My contention is, I'm coming to the linguistic part of it, in which language were these theatrical performances shown,
Yes, that's
made,
important.
which language? Now, and the answer we have got. The answer we have got, but the answer is not in the Nilmat Puran. The answer we have got is from two or three. I mean, first of all, we have uh, you know, we depend on this, the second most important, one of the most important sources after Nilmat Puran, that's the Raj Tarangani.
Rajkaran.
It refers to Ratnavali. Ratnavali was one of the plays. It's a Sanskrit play. Ratnavali was one of the plays that was shown repeatedly. It had become very popular in Kashmir. Ratnavali is a Sanskrit play written by Sri Harsh of the 5th or 6th century. And this play, incidentally, has to say something about Kashmir itself. For instance, it says that in Kashmir, see, learning of Kashmir specialized in learning of 14 subjects. And it also says that about, she speaks about the saffron of Kashmir and says that the saffron, which compares saffron of Kashmir with saffron produced in other places, and it says that the saffron of Kashmir was the best in both smell and color. This is what Ratnavali says. The Ratnavali play written by Sri Harsh. So it is not that we were isolated. Though one of the plays I said was the play written by Sri Harsh Ratnavali. And after all, we are talking of so much about the great Abhinav Gupta. We know that he was a connoisseur of drama, of plays,
Rasa
and
theory,
we know
Abhinav
that
Bharti.
he has written
Abhinav
a whole
Bharti.
he has written a whole no. Apart from that commentary, you see, he has said that
Rasa theory.
his own theory, rasa theory, is based on this thing, on the sort of, you see, our connect Sahriday, connect with the place. He was an ardent critic, or what you can say, he was the first person to talk of plays in Kashmir. And not only he, there were others also. My contention is, in what language, in which language? Was there any other language?
What was it?
What I say is, when even Kalhan says that among the first persons who started speaking the local language, Deshbhasha, was Shankar Varman of 9th century. He was the person who first started. In fact, he is a little admonished for this, that he didn't speak Sanskrit and he started speaking the local language. But the local language itself, as I said, was derived from Sanskrit. I can discuss at whole length how, see, terminology connected with kin, terminology connected with parts of the body, terminology connected with abstract emotions, about with things in use in daily life, ordinary things, about parts of the body, about. You see, just see. I can just say small things you can't even imagine. We talk of us. For instance, I'm just giving an example. As is from Sanskrit, asya. Nas is as such from this Nasika or Nasa.
NASA.
Ach is from Akshay. Karna. Kan is both in Punjabi also. What happens is, in this language, about the phonetical changes I'm saying, how the Old Indo-Aryan changes into Middle Indo-Aryan. So one of the basic changes was the changes in certain consonants. Ka, ta, pa, cha, ja. They were changed. Ka, ta, pa, especially. So they were changed. Instead of ka, there were a vowel came in. Instead of ta became tha. Ka became kha. In Kashmiri also we have these things. And besides, when there's a legion of these uh, letters, a legion of these phonemes, you see, there's a compensatory elongation of the vowel. For instance, there is Kashmiri kan, I said just now. Kan is in Punjabi also. Kan vich paya moti. Kan is in Punjabi also. It's from Karna. And from Karna, there is doubling of the this nasal sound, this na, in Punjabi. But in Hindi, there's elongation of the vowel, it becomes Khan. But in Kashmiri, there's no elongation of this vowel. It becomes Khan again, like Punjabi. So it
Fun.
resembles Punjabi and other languages. So similarly, like from us you have us. Dand is of course there. Not only that, you talk of any part of it, about whether you talk of thumb or whether you talk of finger, also whether you talk of eyes or whether you talk of feet. So there, this is, and then if kin words, and then also words also ordinary words which are in use in everyday life. I have made a list of hundreds of these words which are
Uh,
used in daily
Professor
life.
Saab, Professor Saab, for the sake of our viewers, would you please tell the chronology of this time, space, history, the period you are talking about? Which period are you talking about? Which
When
period?
we talk of Kashmiri,
Yeah.
I, I mean, I think I earlier made it clear that the first time the word Kashmiri was used for Kashmiri was by Khusro,
Nirmat Pran?
Amir Khusro, and he
Amir
placed
Khusro.
it along with Sindhi, and he placed with Durdak, Sagari, and he placed it with Dogri even. He has mentioned Dogri also.
Dogri is also
He has also talked of Lahori along with
Lahori.
Kashmiri. But before that, as I clearly said,
Nirmat
it
Quran, there
was
is
called
mention.
no, but I told
Kashmira,
you about Desha Bhasha. I told
Desh
you
Bhasha.
that in this Shritikant's Mahanai Prakash, he
Mahanai
calls
Prakash.
his language Deshabhasha, 1800 Deshabhasha. I told you that Leela Vai Kaha is a Prakrit work which talks of 1818 Deshabhasha, and not only Leela Vai Kaha but other Jain Prakrit works and works of that age also talk of the regional languages. So Kashmiri was one of the Deshabhasha. So even this man, this Kshemendra, he talks of the upcoming poets in the Desha Bhasha, in the Matri Bhasha. Even Bilhan talks of, you see, women of Kashmir who are as fluent in Prakrit and Sanskrit as they are in their own mother language. That he talks of Matri Bhasha. So by the 10th century, the Kashmiri language was, by the 10th century, was somewhat in place. But the earliest book, the Mahanai Prakash, can be dated only to the 11th century. It has been dated like that by Mark Ditchkovsky also. It belongs to the, and if you may study it
Mark Dishkovsky tells in his.
from internal evidence also, the way the words have developed. And it is, see, they are already, you see, some of the Kashmiri words are already as we see them now, but
No, no.
some of them are very old and obscure. You
What
can't.
I'm saying is,
It is
what I'm
not. I
saying,
have, you see, I have
Professor
read.
Saab, just for a
Fortunately
minute.
for Haji Haji.
I'm saying that when we talk about a language in practice, organic language. When we talk about you talk about 11th century, I'm saying from 200 BC, say around 300 BC when Ashoka Srinagari was,
So
I
that's
mean, from
this
that
is the
period. What I'm saying is, sir, my question first of all, I want to know that these 700, 800 years, this Kashmiri was very near to the Sanskrit, and all its
it
wordology
was
were
not
part of the
near to the
Sanskrit.
Sanskrit. Kashmiri as a
Yeah.
separate language, as a modern language, did not exist.
It didn't exist. Yes, that's
It
what
didn't.
that's what my
No,
point is.
you see, other modern Indian languages also did not exist. It's a development, as I told you, it's a development
Development,
from
evolution,
old
evolution.
Indo Aryan, mid Indo Aryan, modern Indo Aryan. That's how the development has taken place. And the changes have been both phonetical and morphological.
Parakrit also
But
was there.
but lexically, almost all the languages, and even in their morphological structure, even Kashmiri, Choren, Churan,
Suran,
Chura, Choras, Churas.
Suras.
See, Chore bhi, Churao. The
For that
phonetic, the
matter,
morphological elements are also there. And this is pointed out by all the earlier scholars also and the later scholar like Nasika.
what
When
about
Nasika,
what about trigonometry? Trigonometry.
one no,
Trigonometry.
trigonometry is a later coined
I
word,
know.
coins later.
No.
But I
I'm
tell you
saying
one
in a
thing.
lighter vein. Yeah.
But I tell you one thing.
Hmm.
You see, the earliest work which has used zero in the written form is which is it? Can you just It is that क्या manuscripts को कहते हैं uh, क्या है वो क्या काली मैनस्क्रिप्ट वो मैनस्क्रिप्ट है वो जो पाकिस्तान में पाए गए हैं जो
अच्छा
अर्लीस्ट उसकी मैथमेटिक्स की किताब है क्या उसका नाम है क्या काली
मैथमेटिक्स की
मैनस्क्रिप्ट
किताब
हाँ हाँ मैथमेटिक्स की अर्लीस्ट किताब है अभी नाम दिस माय प्रॉब्लम यू सी आई ग्रोन ओल्ड एंड आई जस्ट फॉरगेट नेम्स एट द स्पर ऑफ द मोमेंट
यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट पानिनीज पीरियड पानिनीज टाइम
no it's you see and
ओके
that book you see मैं बताऊंगा क्या खाली है वो क्या खाली लैंग्वेज का नाम है
एनीवे
मेरे को
एनीवे
यार
यू कैन
याद
रिकॉल इन
नहीं
द मीन टाइम
अभी
लेट्स मूव
अभी
ऑन
याद आ जाएगा ऐसे तो
आएगा
आई
आएगा
विल जस्ट नो जस्ट रिमेंबर so that you see has the earliest that is in the village in Pakistan it is in Sharda earliest reference written reference is in Sharda and this was discovered by scholars of the this Oxford University only recently, only 2 3 years back. You see, what they did was they did a carbon dating of the manuscript. And when
कॉमन
they did a carbon dating of the manuscript, 71 pages of it, it was, see, they found that some of it was, could be attributed to the 3rd or 4th century. So then it puts the Sharda script as far back as the 3rd or 4th century. So you can also understand from there what language was in vogue. मुझे नाम क्यों नहीं आया क्या खाली उसको कहते हैं बख्शाली बख्शाली
बख्शाली
बख्शाली बख्शाली this manuscripts Bakshali manuscripts are about we talk of trigonometry are on certain latest theories, certain latest propositions in mathematics.
trigonometry
Not trigonometry, but actually mostly algebra.
algebra
Trigonometry is a term. It's a term see, adapted much later. But at that time, this Bakshali manuscript was there.
बख्शाली
It was a very important manuscript. And earlier it was dated to, some people dated it to 9th century, then they took it to 12th century. Imagine it, without thinking. And now this man, these people in Oxford had, see this, carbon dating on that manuscript, 71 pages manuscript it is, and they found out that the first, written form of zero in anywhere was
शून्य
in that manuscript was in Sharda script. It was the Sharda script in which the first written zero is found. This is a
and
revolution.
that's something very
So
very
don't
amazing
think that Kashmir was so, it is an ancient place. It's certainly an ancient place.
and
And
what about the similarity between the script of Devanagari Sharda and Gurmukhi they say also was an
I'm
offshoot
going to, oh yes, I have a pet subject, you see.
no I mean there's a
So
curious
far as
mind
you see,
yeah.
earlier in entire India, there were two scripts that were prevalent in the whole of India. That is Brahmi and Kharoshthi. These were the two scripts that were prevalent throughout India. Later on, as I talked about just now, see, the Western Brahmi, which was also known as Kutil Brahmi, changed its letters, started changing, and the script that developed was given the name of Siddha Matrika or Siddham script. From Eastern Siddham script came Devanagari. From Western Siddham script, again which developed from the Gupta or Kutil Lipi of Brahmi, came the Sharda script. Sharda and Kashmiri, it is Devanagari are two sisters, they are siblings. They have the same order of phonemes, same order of letters, same order of the alphabet. First, first the vowels, then the kavarg, and then the chavarg, and then the tavarg, all the groups of Sanskrit consonants. First the vowels, then the various groups of Sanskrit consonants. The same in Devanagari, the same in Sharda, and most of their words, many of their words are similar, very similar. La is similar, Ya is similar, Ga is similar, and other words also are. There are differences, of course, but Sharda is certainly the earlier script. It was formed earlier, and then we had the Eastern Siddham, the Eastern Siddham script. From the Eastern Siddham script developed Devanagari. So the two are sister scripts. Now you talked of Gurumukhi.
Yes.
You said this Sharda script was prevalent apart from Kashmir. From Kashmir to entire northwest Himalayan region, and from including Punjab hills, including some Punjab plains, and the region now called Himachal Pradesh. It was as popular. It was a medium for both inscriptional, numismatic, and literary writing. In Himachal Pradesh also, actually in Kashmir we don't have any copper inscriptions, but in Himachal Pradesh there are copper inscriptions in this Sharda script. So this Sharda script started changing in Himachal Pradesh in the 13th century. When it changed into the 13th century, it was known first. It was known as the It eventually was known as the Takari script.
Takari,
So the
yes.
Takari was descendant of Sharda in the 13th century, and from Takari, you see, this Gurumukhi script evolved. Guru Arjun in the 16th century, you see, made some changes in the structure of the alphabets, and emerged the Gurumukhi script. So Gurumukhi script is actually a part of the linguistic subfamily of Brahmi and of Sharda. See, they were, as I told you, their earlier name was Siddham or Siddhamatrika. From Siddhamatrika of the name Sharda, I don't know when exactly the word Sharda came in prevalence, but Sharda is the name of the same script. And this Siddham script, imagine it, a Kashmiri monk scholar known as Pragya Tara. He was known as Pragya Tara. He went to Japan. Actually, he went to China, and there he met with a Japanese scholar, Kobo Daichi. And he introduced the Siddham syllabary to him. And this man was so happy, this Kobo Daichi, who is regarded as the greatest icon of Japanese culture or Japanese cultural renaissance in 8th century. He went to Japan and he introduced the script in Japan, Siddham script. And till this day, I'm talking of 2023, they sit on a particular day in a particular festival and have Siddham calligraphy written. There are artists who prepare Siddham calligraphs, bija mantras, seed syllables written in the Siddham script, which is actually Proto-Sharda.
Proto-Sharda.
So I think you got it now. So Devanagari and Sharda are siblings. Yeah, I'm sorry, they are these sisters, we can say. So they are not, you see, and many of the letters, you see, are similar, and many can be changed, and the order is same, the pronunciation, the name of the letters is same. So
पानी पी लीजिए,
the,
पानी पी लीजिए।
यहाँ कोई है नहीं.
अच्छा, अरे
So that's how it developed. So, but Devanagari came a little later. As we know today, as I told you, that they had this they went through this Bakshali manuscript, you see, and they found that it belonged to the third or fourth century. That way, Devanagari didn't evolve before 9th or 10th.
yes,
It's a later thing.
Devanagari you are
So,
talking about?
yes,
Devanagari.
they
And
are sister. They are
what about
sister
script?
scripts. They are sister scripts.
And what about the
Very
script of Sanskrit, ancient Sanskrit, Vedic
Sanskrit
Sanskrit script,
script. See, first thing was Brahmi.
Brahmi?
Brahmi was the oldest script. Brahmi and Kharoshti were the oldest scripts in use. From Brahmi, which developed the Gupta script, the Kutil script, from
The
which came the
okay.
Western, say, Sharda, this Brahmi. From Western Brahmi came Sharda. And all, mind you, sir, all other Indian scripts, all Indian scripts, including the scripts of so-called these say Tamil or these and other areas. What are they called?
Malayalam, Kannada,
Dravid languages.
Dravid, Dravid.
They have also derived from Brahmi. From Brahmi came in the around the fourth century. We had this Gupta script. From Gupta script came the Siddham script. From Siddham script, which was the Proto Sharda script, came Sharda script. From Sharda script, developed this Gurumukhi as a sub family, and even the Tibetan script, the 31 syllable, the 31 letter Tibetan script has everything to do with Siddham and Nagari and Sharda again. So they are all interconnected. It is said that Yeshao, this king of Western Tibet, see, he sent Thonmi Sambhot and 22 scholars to uh, Kashmir. Out of those scholars, only two remained. One of them was the great Thonmi Sambhot for getting a script for Tibetan. And it is from Kashmir, they say, that they got the Tibetan script that we see today, the 31 letter Tibetan script.
But as per the structure, syntax of Sharda concerned, as you say that it was equivalent to Brahmi and other
Oh, no,
languages.
no, they are very closely related. The development
Okay.
has been all traced, very closely related.
And was it
If
only an origin? Sharda was only an origin. Its development, its links,
No, I
its
told
limbs,
you that the
its
first thing
structure, its
was
syntax,
the
its paraphernalia.
see
Was it
everything.
limited? Yeah.
I can repeat my position. I can repeat my statement. First, there was Brahmi and Kharoshti. They were the two scripts.
Very right.
Kharoshti soon disappeared when the Kushans came.
During the time of Kushans.
After the Kushans left, after Kanishk and his company left, there was only Brahmi. From Brahmi developed all Indian scripts. I am repeating it, including the Dravidian script and also our own Sharda script. It developed
Oh,
from Western Brahmi.
best.
The Siddham form or the Kutil form of Brahmi script. The development takes centuries. It does not take a
It takes
day.
centuries. It's
It's
evolution.
not that you see, just something happened today and tomorrow there'll be another script. That
It's
didn't
not instant.
happen.
Yeah.
The letters have to
Depends upon
develop.
many factors.
There have to be there were inscriptions. There were inscriptions. The oldest inscriptions in Brahmi that we have got extant are the pillars of edicts of Ashoka, 3rd century BC. That's the oldest. But there is reference to scripts, to even Brahmi, in ancient literature, especially the Buddhist literature. In Buddhist literature, they refer to, they said that Buddha was sent to a Lipishala. Lipishala means a school of scripts. So he was taught the scripts there. This is what
School
it is
linguist.
said. I mean, this is what the Buddhist books say, but see, Buddhist works say. So Buddha was sent there. But actually, the thing is that there was Brahmi. Brahmi had many forms. One of them was Kutil or this Mauryan Brahmi, this Gupta Brahmi. And from the Gupta or Kutil or whatever you call it, developed the earlier forms of Sharda called Siddham or Siddhamatrika. And then, which later got the name of Sharda. So that's how it developed. There's a clear, very clear, I mean, there's no ambiguity about it.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, for a normal common person, it's very difficult to go into this complex web of evolution of languages. And under the garb of this, there are so many misplaced theories and misplaced assertions and researches, which are probably, I mean, dislodges our mind from the real thing, what actually had happened, how these
So
languages actually, yeah.
languages and scripts are a little different, but so far as Sanskrit is concerned, its alphabet was first written in the Brahmi because they said that the art of writing was first of all devised somewhere outside India. So it was in the Western, Middle East, in the Middle East or West Asia. From that, how it came to India, I don't know. But the thing is, Aramaic, for instance,
Avatar
Aramaic,
Motaji, Avatar
uh,
Motaji, Avatar Motaji is
Aramaic,
writing. Avatar Motaji is writing a comment. He's giving respects to you, and he's writing a comment that Siddham calligraphy is displayed proudly in the drawing room walls of the Japanese families. This is a great
yes,
contribution
yes,
from
yes,
Kashmir. Yeah.
I'm just what I said. So Siddham calligraphy on scrolls and scrolls of paper on a special day. I mean, this has been mentioned by a great scholar who went there and who brought scrolls of a Siddham calligraphy from
Yes.
Japan. That's Dr. Lokesh Chandra.
Dagre location. Yes. Great
He
contribution.
has written also. He's written it on it also. But
whether
I mean,
whether the water of linguistic evolution has flown from here or there to here, why should we shy that this whole synthesis has a very outer periphery where also Indian Aryan effect remains as a I mean, why should we treat it as a misnomer development of a
what?
language? I mean,
No, you
yeah.
see, people have their own agendas. And
Yes,
if you have your own baggage, you have to do away with it first. See, then alone you can explore things, you can explore truth, and
you have to
truth
come
has to
neutral
be
first.
based on evidence, not hearsay, not imagination,
Not emotion.
not even that. That's what emotion is political, of course. See, not on those things. Yeah, what are the actual facts? The actual facts are shown by the inscription on stone, inscription on coins, inscription on copper, which were first in this Brahmi and then in the other scripts followed.
Let's
So
talk
this is
about
the
it's very romanticizing idea, very wonderful revelations we are having today. Let's talk about the brief period of Kanishka. I mean, the period of Kanishka, and let's.
Kanishka was first or second century. You see,
I mean, what I mean
from
to say is that linguistic perception of those times.
so no during Kanishka's time we held in Kashmir the fourth Buddhist council,
Both Consulia,
in
famous for that.
which the tenets of the Buddhist religion were, or Buddhist religious scriptures were revised. They were revised, they were changed.
They were
And
changed.
from that change, called Vibhashika, see, they all did it, they wrote on copper. They wrote, inscribed things on copper. But where have all those copper plaques gone, copper plates gone, is not known. In Himachal Pradesh, we do have copper plates inscribed in Sharda, but not in Kashmir. In Kashmir, the earliest we have got is the numismatic evidence, the coins of these Karkota kings. See, that's from where it starts. But even outside Kashmir, can you imagine that a coin in the with a legend in the Sharda script was produced from Kabul? In 11th, 10th, 11th, Kabul was ruled by the Brahman kings, Brahman Shahi kings.
Brahman Shahi. Brahman Shahi is
So
known
the
here.
Brahman Shahi kings were later on defeated by this, Ghazni, Mahmud Ghazni in the 10th, 11th century. So when Mahmud Ghaznavi, you see, defeated them and they shifted their base from Kabul to Udbhandpur in western, now present western Pakistan,
Western
you
Pakistan.
see. But this Ghazni brought out his coins as usual in Arabic, the Kalma. And the people there, imagine it now, people there, in spite of their conversion, clamored for Sharda's legend, clamored that the coin should be brought out in Sharda. And he had to bring out a coin, a dirham.
Dirham.
He brought out a silver dirham in which both the scripts were, legends in both the scripts were written. In Sanskrit, in Sharda script, in Arabic, in Arabic script. So, Avyaktam Ekam, Muhammad Avatar, Nripati Muhammad, Avyaktam Ekam, one unmanifest, that means God, Allah. So, who is his avatar? That's Muhammad.
Prophet.
And who is the king? Muhammad, again, Ghazni. This is what it means. But it was done in Sanskrit and Sharda. Coin of a Muslim country being, you see, having legends in Sharda and Sanskrit. So it's
Because
not
in
all
those,
that.
yeah,
Yes, I'm talking of 11th century,
11th century.
1027 or something like that. Because Mahmud Ghaznavi died in 1030. You see, this is
Ghazni,
all. And
Ghazni,
imagine Al-Biruni in his Kitabul Hind.
Al-Burini, yeah, he refers to it.
Al-Biruni was, see, he also talks of this very script, Siddhamatrika. He talks of Siddhamatrika as the script of Kashmir. So that's the evidence, you see, the evidence is there. All the evidence is there. And this Sharda script overflowed. It didn't remain limited to Kabul on those colossal Buddhas, caves, and all that. You see, in the 6th or 7th centuries, they found out, a French or other, these archaeological teams found out some statues. For instance, a statue of a Ganesh in places like Gardez. They found out with the titles, the legends written with writings in Sharda below on the pedestal. On the pedestal, there was the writing in Sharda script. In Kabul, then there were another murti was found. There were 3 places, you see, and it was an Uma Mahesh murti, not Buddhist alone. And Uma Mahesh murti had also its legend, its writings, its title in Sharda script. Then they found clay, earthen clay, earth clay was made of this
Clay pot.
clay tablet. On the clay tablet again, It was what the inscription was in Sharda. So imagine that's before 7th, 8th century. So that's there. So it was not in Kashmir, many things have been destroyed. And these
Yeah,
evidences may also have been destroyed. But as I told you, that in Oxford, see, they put it to a test and they found that the Bakshali manuscript belongs to the 3rd or 4th century, that it upsets everybody's calculations because up to this time they thought that Sharda developed around 8th or 9th century.
this
And
was the
some
perception.
even some even put it to the 10th century, including those people who have written good books on Sharda script. They also say the same thing. But what to do to this thing? It upset the whole all calculations.
Takshashila and yeah, most
So
Takshashila.
what I tell you is that things are not as they seem. I mean, the tradition goes far beyond and far back. The Sanskrit that Kashmir was, that's why one of our great political thinkers of the person belonging to our community called it Sanskrit Himalaya.
Mhm.
This entire thing was the Sanskrit script, the Sanskrit language. Thousands of manuscripts in fragment in Sanskrit have been found in Western Asia. Many of them, or rather most or all of them, in Proto Sharda.
Proto-Sharda.
They are written there. They have been explored. They have been researched. They have been recorded. This thing has been recorded. So you say where from we come. So we are a Vedic speech community.
Like
We are a way like other place. See, nothing remains isolated or insulated. Kashmir was not insulated or
it was
isolated.
never insulated. It was always fulcrum, organic connection between the world, one part of the world with another part of the world.
So
What
that's
by that?
how, I mean, you talked of the development. But I took you first deliberately to Nilmat Puran and to the plays that were shown, the plays that were enjoyed, which were offered as theatrical performance or offering of theatrical performance, Prekshadan.
Rikshada.
It's a unique thing. Theater persons offering, making an offering of a theater performance. I asked what was the language. Which language did they understand? All of them. Then I said that the Ratnavali play, written by Sri Harsh, who has made many references to Kashmir, about to saffron, to the branches of knowledge, you see, which was, in which Kashmir was, for which Kashmir was known, 14 branches of knowledge. He talked of that. He talked of Kashmir. And his play also was very popular in Kashmir. Kalhan says, Kalhan does not directly refer to Ratnavali as such, but he does say that people ran away just as people run away when there's a sudden downpour of rain. As they run away from a theatrical performance like Ratnavali.
Actually,
So,
if we go to the details of our ancient temples, we saw the circumambulating area, the armpit, and the stairs. I think it was a combo kind of a structure where the performances would be performed, where this prayer would be done, and assembly would be done. I mean, all these things were in a kind of a
no,
conglomerate. Yeah,
one thing more I tell you. The earliest play written in the Sanskrit language, the earliest play supposed to be written in the at the most 4th or 5th century is Padataditkam.
Padatarittam, yeah.
It is written in Sanskrit again. I can't help it. Because you see, it was a Sanskrit cosmopolis. It was not, Sanskrit was not limited to India. Sanskrit was a language just like as English is today in
Yes,
places
yes.
like in
It was the same.
Thailand, in Vietnam, in all South Asia, Southeast
Far
Asia,
East,
East
other
Asia,
places.
East Asia. It was a language that was spread there also. As Pollock has said, is not very complimentary about it, but he
Yes.
accepts, he says it was, you see, all centers and no circumference. So all these places were centers of Sanskrit, there was no circumference. This is what Pollock mentions.
Wonderful.
He
What an
and the
example.
word cosmopolis, Sanskrit cosmopolis, is his coinage. So what he says is that Kashmir was a part of this cosmopolis. This Kashmiri intellectuals, you see, whether for a wider reach or whatever reason, they chose Sanskrit. That's what why I started from this Nilmat Puran
And
and this.
if we, I don't know if we know the Kalidasa, they place him somewhere around 6th century, and this
See,
Abhigyan Shakuntala. No, I don't know. I mean, what is being normally said in India that around Abhigyan
this
Shakuntalam,
is
and he conceived there. Yes, please.
I don't know. This is what Mr. Kalla says. Why is one Mr. Kalla? I don't remember his full name. Even Professor Kalla. He's a very good scholar. He was. He's no more alive. He was a professor of Sanskrit in Kashmir, in India, in Delhi itself. And he
No, but
is of the opinion.
Mohan
Mohan
Rakesh, because I have
Rakesh
been
also.
certain
Yes.
Ashad ka
Ashar
ek
ka.
din, he, yes,
Yeah,
he
yeah. It is
talks about
there.
Kashmir.
I mean,
Yeah.
see, that's right. But these are not any. See, there is not final
Evidences.
evidence. There is no conclusive evidence. There has to be some conclusive evidence about it.
But he talks about a country as beautiful as Kashmir
There are so many places, even
like
Western
Kashmir.
Pakistan. Yes, in Western
Yes.
Pakistan itself,
Anyway,
from where Panini comes.
Panini, yeah, Panini is slightly
He
Punjabi.
also
That
comes. No, no, not Punjabi. It is. I don't know. I remember that name. It's a beautiful place in Pakistan.
I mean,
In
somewhere
POK. In POK
POK,
now. Yes.
Mirpuri and other places, Mirpur
No,
and
no.
other
I
places.
don't remember the name of that place. It's a very beautiful valley.
No, but it is a sub Punjabi language they speak,
No,
like Dogri is,
no.
like Mirpuri.
Dogri is a very different thing. Dogri was spoken only in that Madhya Pradesh, only in that part, and some Pahadi areas of the Himachal. So Dogri was
Yes,
limited to that
Shivalik
area.
range,
Shivalik
Shivalik range.
range.
Hmm.
Dogri was
Anyway, let's
limited to
move
this
forward.
one.
I mean, we are having some informative things.
So
Let's forget about Kalidas.
now
Yeah,
Kalidas,
For-
I see, is an all India
but I love him
great.
so much. I
He's an
love him
all
so
India great, and we cannot talk to about him particularly in context of Kashmir. He
much.
may have, you see, there's Ashar ka ek din, the cloud messenger, and all
Mohan
that.
Rakesh,
He
that was his
basic,
person.
he was an
Imagine.
all India figure, and we can't. But there are people in Kashmir also. I told you about the first Kashmir, uh, first play to be written in Sanskrit in Kashmir was Pada Tarte Kam. So then, see, after
Just,
that,
just an amusement insertion between me. It is in a lighter vein. I mean, when this, Lalta Aditya conquered the south and the northeast and other places, he brought along with his the luminaries, the great luminaries
yes,
from the
yes,
central India, from Ujjaini and other places, from UP and other places. Any of the prominent ones, because it's connection with literature and other things as well. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we all know about the great Abhinav Gupta, but there are
Abhinav
others
Gupta,
also.
but he
Others
was
are so many.
grandfather had already come in
There are
Kashmir. He was
so
already
many
there.
people who came from Bihar to Kashmir, who came from other parts of India and settled down in Kashmir. Read Alexis Sanderson, and he says that the present customs and the surnames of Kashmiri Pandits are not all from Kashmir. They are,
Actually,
they are of Bihari Brahmins, they are of other Brahmins because of the links. After all, Ashok ruled over Kashmir.
Ashok
Ashok
ruled.
was from Bihar. So the Bihar tradition has to come. So other traditions also have to come. So Kashmir was not that isolated. So we cannot say unless we have a conclusive evidence.
We
But
have the, we have the, we have the, we have.
I'm talking of this man, Alexis Sanderson, who is regarded as the greatest scholar on tantric studies. The greatest he is regarded, and his deep, in-depth research, his insights are so valuable and so authoritative.
Whether it went from here to the Far East, to the Caspian Sea, or it came from Caspian Sea to this place, there are certain things, certain traditions in Kashmiri, even Kashmiri Pandits, like we have the Sont, like we have the Navre, like we have this attitude of looking at a thali, a platter filled with milk and other things. Things might have changed, but this tradition
So
still prevails in
this
the
this particular thing about the thali you talk
yeah.
is somehow a practice, a custom, a religious custom in Iran also, Navroz.
Iran. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. There is a
it
similar.
is
Yeah.
there. Because
That's what
they were not different people.
they were one.
The ancient Irani language.
Zoroastrians were the fire worshippers.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So the
Surya
language were
worshippers. Surya
almost like
worshippers.
the Vedic language.
Vedic language. Yes.
The
Extension of
Zen
it.
Avestan language, the language of Zen Avesta, almost sounds like you see when you read something from that Zen Avesta, you feel you are reading a Vedic shloka.
Vedic shlok.
How does it
That's
happen?
true.
So it is
So you
there. It is not all, that's why I told you, Kashmir was not all that isolated in spite of the mountains. Much is made of the mountains, but it is not the case.
anyway, I would like to say let's move a bit further. And would you like to talk something about literary this culture as well? Not only linguistic. We talked about linguistic, literary, and other aspects as well.
They are interlinked.
They are interlinked. How?
When we said that the earliest evidence of this play written in Sanskrit is from Kashmir. Part I told you about it. I told you about how Sanskrit plays were shown in Kashmir, and I told you how Kashmiri language. I mean, this is my contention, not only my contention. It's now almost a foregone, accepted conclusion and a consensus that Kashmiri has derived from the early Indo-Aryan Indic speech, as you can say. If you don't like Indo-Aryan, you can call it the early Indic speech. From early
Yes.
Indic to mid-Indic, from mid-Indic to modern. I mean, just like other, I told you, there are many similarities. Similarly about language. So since it was a part of the Sanskrit cosmopolis, so Kashmiri intellectuals, Sanskrit intellectuals, chose a wider reach for their works, for their creative works. So they wrote in Sanskrit, all of them. And I told you about this man, but in spite of that, it was not, as someone said, that linguistically homogeneous and conceptually standard forms of Sanskrit. They were legal nuances. The, just I want to just draw your attention to this also,
Yes, please cut.
that the Buddhist tenets, the Buddhist scriptures, the Pitaks, Tripitaks, are all in Pali. But the entire Mahayana works, all the sutras, they are in Sanskrit. How are they in Sanskrit? Did they give up Pali? Because Sanskrit was almost a cosmopolitan language,
It had its
and the
roots and
people,
wings, branches, everything.
who took Sanskrit to Tibet and other Central Asian countries were Kashmiris. They were from Kashmir.
Yeah, we
Tibet
have
had its
Kumaraji.
religion from Kashmir. We talked of so. I mean, there's a vast thing if you talk of Sanskrit literature in Kashmir. But
Yeah, we
let us
can just
go.
go on and on.
Let us see. Let us see. We have a there are almost on all genres Kashmiris have written. You see, they have written the plays, they have written the Purans, they have written the Kavyas, They have written the dramas, plays. They have written
Syntax,
all this,
grammar. Yeah.
everything. So we go to a thing quite unknown to you. That is Sri Kantha Charit. Have you heard the name?
No, I'm not.
Now, Sri Kantha Charit was written in the time of Jayasimha. It was written
There's
somewhere in 1100 and something to 27 or 28 to 1155 when Jayasimha ruled. Now he wrote it's a kavya. It has all the peculiarities, all the conventional elements that a classic Sanskrit kavya has.
epic.
Yet it is yet it is different. No, it's not an epic.
It's not an epic.
It's
Okay.
no. You can't call it epic. Mahakavya you can call. I don't know if Mahakal you
It's
can
not a
call
Mahakal.
epic.
Okay. Hmm.
So it's a Mahakavya. Let's not translate it like that.
Okay. Okay.
Because for us the epics are only Ramayana and Mahabharata.
Ramayana, Mahabharata, and
So what it was written in a language which had local nuances and which also articulated the regional identity. We have all the elements of the Sanskrit kavya, classic play, classic kavya. Yet we have elements which articulate the local identity. For instance, for instance, there is a convention that a Mahakavya must have description of seasons. And generally the season preferred by most of the people are, I mean, Sanskrit there are only two seasons, either spring or the
not
rainfall. Rain.
rain. Yeah.
Both of them are connected with the erotic sentiment.
Yeah.
Both are connected with the erotic
Erotica is there.
sentiment. Now here we have this man, this Mankha fellow from Kashmir, writing Shrikant Charit about a subject that's mythological, about how Shrikant means, incidentally, this was the name of my father also, had whose throat is full of glory, glorious, shining throat. So he is given that name because of the poison that he quaffed. So
Lord
this
Shiva.
man, he wrote the Shrikant Charit, which is about Shiva, how Shiva defeated the Tripurasur, the demon who controlled the three cities. Shiva is known as Tripurari also. All the conventions are there. You have description of seasons. You have description of the sentiments, all kinds of sentiments. So you have these things of alankars. That means, you see, all these conventional things are there. And his particular preference for the pun or shlesh, that's also there. But then he also articulates the regional identity. I told you that we talk of the season, and he is not talking of the spring at this time. He talks of the snowfall. He talks of the snowfall on the mountains of Kashmir. And he talks of the snowfall of the mountains of Kashmir and says that the peaks looked like there was a ash smeared on the throat of Shrikant.
Oh, I
And
see.
then also, he surprises us by telling the snow was falling. And there were people, the pleasure loving people who assembled there and had their drinks, wine, with oranges.
Wine
People
with orange.
sipped. No, you don't have oranges in Kashmir normally. You can't talk of oranges in Kashmir. And he has deliberately throughout talked of pleasure loving people enjoying wine with oranges. How comes? The oranges were actually found in Punch. They were
Fruits.
grown in Punch. From Punch, they came to Kashmir. from Kashmir. These people, these young people, pleasure loving, biased towards pleasure, would have an alcoholic drink, wine, on the winter days when the snow was falling, you see, and when the erotic sentiments were aroused.
There.
He talks of this.
On a
And then he,
Puranmashi moonlit night
yeah,
as
and
well.
then he also even Abhinav Gupta talks of people who enjoyed wine in Kashmir. Even Abhinav Gupta. But I'm
We
not
need to
talking of
research.
that.
We
He
need
is
to
the
research it.
first person
Yeah.
to talk of Kangdi.
Oh,
He does not use the word Kangdi for it. He uses the word Hasantika.
Hasantika.
Hasantika, he has described it what it means. Hasantika, he says that see, red hot coals are the eyes of the god of love, Kamadeva. They are watching. And he also compared it, you see, the Ashoka wine to the structure of the Kangadi and the Palash, red flowers, to the live coals. So all these, awakened the feeling of enjoying pleasure, enjoying erotic sentiments among young people. So he talks of this thing.
There's a school of
Nobody has
erotica as
talked.
well.
Nobody, no, I'm talking of the snowfall especially. This is a
Snowfall,
period when
snowfall
the
and
snow falls. The snow is
mango
falling. These people are assembled on the ground. The snow is falling. They are enjoying their
ambience,
oranges with their glass of or cup of wine or whatever you call it. And
local wine.
also he talks of the kangri that was used at that time. So in spite of all the conventional languages, conventional descriptions, he has this element. He articulates the regional identity. We find among, and what is more important is he was contemporary to Kalhan, and he called a big assembly, a sabha, like you have the Jaipur festival and all that now.
Nowadays, yeah.
So he called authors and scholars from different parts of country to Kashmir, and they recited their works. And this Srikant Charit, passages from it, verses from it, were recited by this man. And the person among the he was the brother of the minister at that time, Alankar. He was his brother. He also invited Kalhan.
Oh, that's what
Kalhan was
I
also
wanted to ask you.
one of the
Yeah.
participants. But Kalhan is given the name Kalyan there,
Kalyan.
a full Sanskritic name, and not the one that's Prakritic. So Kalhan and Bilhan or Dilhan, these are Kashmiri names, but they are derived from a Sanskrit origin.
Sanskrit origin
So
is Sanskrit.
this man was there, and they all recited their works. They were all excited over this. He was nervous about it. But after he read, and after he particularly articulated the regional aspects,
They were
two
both
of them,
robbers.
another regional aspect I tell you, and
They were
again
both
that
chroniclers.
regional aspect is also connected to snowfall. He said, when the snow falls on the peaks, the idols that are worshipped with ghee, the ghee does not melt. So they form murtis of ghee also. It doesn't melt. See, they form murtis of ghee. I have seen this practice of forming ghee murtis. I mean, I'm not in places
No,
like
there is a
Sikkim,
question.
places
There is
like
no.
Sikkim,
There is a
places like
question.
Sikkim,
Somebody is
places
asking.
like Sikkim.
Somebody's asking, actually, he doesn't know, he may not be understanding. Kalana is not an Abhinav Gupta's contemporary. He says that are they contemporaries?
No, no, no. Abhinav Gupta is a different.
Kalana and Abhinav
Abhinav
Gupta, they are
Gupta
not
belonged to
contemporaries.
the 11th century. Kalhan came after
And
him.
I want to ask one thing. Like we have a simile in the history, Zok and Ghalib. Like we have this Kalidasa and Vilom. You are talking about two great personalities of this era,
I
of
am
the
talking of
contemporary,
people who have been ignored.
ignored. Okay.
Sri Charit has been ignored until recently. The book was not even published. It wasn't
And who
published.
and who got these manuscripts first? The Western Indologist or Indian?
No, I mean, I think this Motilal Banarsidas, I have seen it from him.
Okay.
He has also published. I think somebody else may have also published. I'm not aware. Because I heard that it was first published in 1983. So I'm just giving an example of just one work. So they follow the tradition, but it is not that thing that they are just passive followers of conventions. They also try to articulate, express, give shape to the regional identity. Our Sanskrit writers. There are others also. There are many others also. There's a man called Shivaswami who wrote Kafinna Abhyuday. Kafinna. No, it's not about this fellow writes about Kashmir. That fellow does not write about Kashmir. That fellow writes about a Buddhist in Shravasti or somewhere else. So he talks about a Buddhist Acharya. He talks about this Kafinna Abhyuday. He was a king. Kafinna was a king,
Kafan.
and the writer was a Shav. Just see this thing. I want to point out to this thing. Shivaswami was a Shavite by conviction, by faith. And the man, the Acharya who told him to write on this subject was a Buddhist Acharya. And he wrote. And not only did he write, you see, when this Kafinna fellow was a Buddhist. So there was another person, another king in Kosal, known as Prasenajit or something like that. I don't always remember names. So that fellow was not a Buddhist. That fellow did not speak well of this king, Kafinna king. So there was a debate among Kafin's followers, Kafin's ministers. Should we attack this person or not? What should we do to an enemy? So that thing is discussed. What should we do done to such an enemy who doesn't like you? So his officers, his officials, his ministers say attack this personage. And eventually they attacked this personage. And when this personage of Kosal was about to be defeated, he suddenly, I'm telling you, this is what the work says, was about to be defeated. Suddenly he prayed to Buddha. And Buddha appeared to him. And he said, I want to be a Buddhist now. He accepted
Buddhist.
Buddhism. Kafinna accepted Buddhism. But Buddha, I mean, this is what the Kavi said, no, you need not. You just carry on your duties as a king. You have a dharma towards your people also. Remain in Grahast. Don't join the Buddhist monastic order. Don't join the mutt. Remain a king. Afterwards, you may do whatever you like. So,
I think those were not segmented.
So, see, imagine it. There are so many factors. The man is Shaiva, writer is Shaiva.
But did we have segmentation?
Writes on a Buddhist subject, and he shows a king converted to Buddhism.
Was is this conversion word proper? I think there were no segmentation and regimentation in those times. No segmentation, no regimentation.
So it is not. There are links, there are connections, but it's not exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
There's a dialogue. There's no,
Your
no
dialogues.
doubt a connect and a dialogue. The dialogue was always there. They were not enemies. But
They were not
this was
enemies.
the
He was also said to be the Lord Vishnu. I mean, Lord Buddha
so
was
this was
considered Lord Vishnu in
this
Kashmir.
is what this Shiv Swami's Kafinno Abhyuday is about. Then there were
Sir,
other
in
people.
between, just an intervention because it's such a wonderful subject. I would like to ask questions. I mean, like a child, I jump to the
Oh,
questions.
no, no, no. You can
I have a
we
child's
can continue.
curiosity.
We can go
I
on.
want to, I want to really know what was the reason of complete annihilation of Buddhism from Kashmir, from the basin where it spread to the world.
Actually, there was never a complete annihilation till Islam came.
It came in
Never.
14th century.
In 14th century, there were people who went from Kashmir to Tibet. They were called the Kashmiri Panditas.
Kashmiri
It
Panditas.
is not a Persian word. It is not given to this thing is not given to them by the Mughal kings. This is written by Lama Taranath. Lama Taranath was actually he wrote the history of Buddhism in India and the Buddhism that was transmitted to Tibet as such, the Mahayana and other
Mahayana.
and Vajrayana traditions.
Vajrayana,
He
Mahayana.
wrote he
School.
wrote about that.
Kumara
So
Jiva.
he told them that the Kashmiri Panditas also came. The Kashmiri Pandita is not my translation. It is by the translation, I don't remember his name, that for Western scholar. He
Learned.
translated this thing.
Panditas
And
means learn it. The masters.
नहीं
Learn
मेरे को
it means.
नाम याद नहीं उसका
नहीं नहीं
बहुत फेमस
पंडितास
है कई
पंडितास
कई वॉल्यूम्स में 3 वॉल्यूम्स में ये इट्स बीन
नहीं मैं
ट्रांसलेटेड
कह रहा हूँ पंडितास मतलब the idea was to give them make them understand that they were the
no
learned people,
yes so
elevated.
they were called Kashmiri Panditas. They were not called Buddhist monks or bhikshus.
Okay, that's what I wanted to say.
See the difference, there's a difference about it. They were given a separate name. So the first people who called us Kashmiri Panditas were not the Mughals. The Mughals did not know any Sanskrit. They
They were
only
Turkish,
spoke, they did
Persians.
not speak only Persian. They never talked about this
That was
thing.
also aborted. That was also aborted.
So this comes from Tibet. And this is what I tell you. There are so many people, you see. There's Kshemendra. There's the writer of Agamadambar. Now Kshemendra. Take Kshemendra. And see what a biting satire he has written.
Rasa.
He has bashed all the crooks in his Narmamala, in his Deshopadesh, in his Samay Matrika, in his
Samay Mat-
Kala Vilas. He wrote over 30 works and he exposed, attacked all sorts of, the people who were fake, who cheated people, who exploited people, the economic exploiters, the religious exploiters, people, and then most of them, mostly the official class. He bashed the official class, and the official class was known as caste. They were not caste, the
UP.
subcaste we have today. They were the officials of the king. The king's officials were, or anybody's officials, were known as caste. The man who supplied fodder and supplied grass to the horses was also a caste. The man who managed the temples was also a caste. And the way they exploited people has been very stringently, very bitterly exposed by Kshemendra. He says that he is using satire as a tool so that people reform themselves. The first person who was aware of the value of satire, and he calls these officials the birch bark bannered messengers of death. Why? Because of their cheating, because of their scams. So he says that in a jiffy, with the stroke of their pen, they changed plus into minus, sahit into rahit. And by these tricks of the pen, they exploited people, impoverished people, they destroyed institutions, including the temples. There was Niyogi in charge of the temples, and what he did, so in one of his stories he gives, he was a Niyogi who was in charge of the temples, and the first thing he is due to do was to sell the copper plaque of the temple, the copper plate of the temple. From that copper plate, he made a small ring, bell. That bell also he later sold and made money out of it. And he also, and all those people associated with them, sold bit by bit material for incense, material for worship, other requirements in the temple, and looted the temple. So people, so I call them bureaucratic bungling, who did all this bureaucratic bungling,
Hegemony.
or
Hegemony.
traders and their trickeries. So he has attacked all these, and not only these people, he has attacked the king and the king's officials also. And he has said, I have written it somewhere, that he has written it, Ha praje kwa gamishasi. Where will you go, O populace, when the backbiter, when the evil-mannered, backbiter, mad person, mad after power, is occupying the place of power? Where will you go, O populace? Ha praje kwa gamishasi. Where will you go? And he has, I told you that he exposed the trickeries, the frauds of the king's officials, how fat their wives became, what jewelries they wore after they looted the people, what tricks they adopted. And above all, he also wrote about the courtesan culture prevailing in Kashmir. And that shows his knowledge of this geography of Kashmir was wonderful. And not only Kashmir, he knew places outside Kashmir also and described them in his works. But he did not limit himself to the biting satire of the traders and their trickeries, of the people. See, I have very funny stories. I don't have time for them. We can discuss.
No, you can just have one. You can
thing,
you can share your stories a bit.
Kshamendra alone has so much to say.
Kshemendra ka bahut lot of work.
But Kshamendra also contributed a lot to poetics.
Poetics, dramatics, aesthetics.
Auchitya Sampradaya. The cult of the school of propriety. And he has contributed to that also. He also, there is we all know Jayadev, the great writer,
Jayadev.
the writer of Gita Govinda. He is said to be the first person who wrote the Dashavatar Charit. It's a very beautiful song, of which a parody has now been made. And the parody alone that Kashmiri Pandits remain. That is Jaya Jagadish Hare, Keshava Dhrita Kalka Sharir, Jaya Jagadish Hare. That he was a very great poet, this man, Jayadev. Yadi har smrane sarasam manaha, yadi kalasu vilasu kutuhalam, shrutada kavi Jayadeva bharatim, murdukomala kanta padavalim. So
Beautiful.
he said, if you want to hear sweet songs, sweet lyrics about the Lord, about Hari, read my verses, beautifully worded verses. Read them. But before he wrote this Dashavatar Charit, we have Kshemendra writing the Dashavatar. Kshemendra writing the Dashavatar, and before this, Jaydev was known for the liquid music of his songs, of his lyrics. Beautiful music of words.
Soulfulness. Soulfulness.
So was Kshemendra.
Kshemendra was beautiful.
Kshemendra writes about, Kshemendra writes about, you see, when Krishna goes away from them, from Mathura and Vrindavan, he goes to Dwarika, and one of the, what the gopis feel, and the gopis write us. He has written a song about it, beautiful song. Kasya Narayan Yuge Rati Sange, Majjit Manasij Tarala Tarange, Manita Navamadane. Such a, it's
Oh,
a whole thing, I remember it. This whole song has been given by this Hazari Prasad Dwivedi. It's such a beautiful musical song. So you forget the man who wrote about the biting satires against the traders, against the officials, against exploiters, religious exploiters, and against the courtesans and their people. He
Kotians and
wrote
their
this thing also.
strategies and conspiries.
He also
Conspiries.
wrote Ramayana Manjari, Mahabharat Manjari. That means abstracts of the Ramayana, abstracts of Mahabharata. So he wrote these things also. And then he wrote the book. Imagine it. The man was a disciple of Abhinav Gupta in the first place.
Yeah,
He has mentioned it.
he wrote about his sutra
Then
also,
after
no?
he, so that means he was a Shaiv.
He
Then
was a
he
chef.
became a then he became a Vaishnav. Then he wrote Buddhist avadans, stories about the Buddha. And these Buddhist avadans went from there, from Kashmir to Tibet, and they became a part of their scripture, Tangyur. Can you imagine it? That, say, the transmission was made from
Oh,
this very man's poetry. He wrote the avadans. So he was really a polyglot. Wrote on all sorts of things. Wide scholarship, but
much.
also conscious of his mission as a creative writer.
Okay.
That's why he talked of the using satire as a tool to reform people.
That's so
And
wonderful.
the so beautiful, such a biting satire, incisive satire.
We didn't talk
Which,
about Batlolata and others,
how
Anvarman.
but there are two things
Hmm.
that Kashmir has mainly given, and this all is in Sanskrit. Please note
Yes,
two
yes.
things to the world. One is the Indian aesthetic theory, the theory of Rasadhwani,
Rasadhani.
and the second thing is the philosophy, tantric philosophy, Vedanta based philosophy of pure, undifferentiated consciousness as Shiva, that is Kashmir Shaivism.
Tarkashastra.
Both the things are from Kashmir. So now, one Bharat Muni, he gave a formula for ras. Ras
Dramaturgy.
means the say this
Bhav,
aesthetic sentiment.
sentiment, catharsis, kind of a
He said that there are
aesthetic
abiding,
sentiment. Yeah,
eight
that's the right word.
abiding sentiments in in a human being's mental composition. They are the eight rasas. So, how are these rasas activated? How do they arouse? He said, oh, vibhav anubhav sanyogad विभाव अनुभव संचारी भाव संयोगाद this rasa nishpatti. This was a sentence. But he did not mention the main thing, the abiding mental states. And this one sentence of Bharat created a storm of controversies, unleashed storms of controversies. Scholars came on to debate on this thing. What, after all, is rasa? Where does it lie? Does it lie in the reader? Does it lie in the actors? Does it
Is it
lie?
physical or it is a bhav? Yeah,
Does it lie in the writer? So
writer.
this was the debate. Great debate ensued, and one of the persons, and all of them tried to explain the meaning of this sentence, this sutra, this formula, vibhav, anubhav, and sanyogi bhav, sanyogat, rasanishpatti. What is rasanishpatti?
That's a
So
Nishipatti.
what he meant by this thing? There are stimulants, there are ancillary states of mind. These stimulants, these ancillary states of mind, these things all put together, when they are together, they create, arouse these abiding sentiments, these 8 abiding sentiments. And they become ras. Ras is not the abiding sentiment. Ras is not bhav. Ras is the aesthetic sentiment that a work of that an artistic presentation, that a aesthetic presentation awakens in your mind. So there was a discussion. So first there was this man Bhattalolat. Bhattalolat was, some say, he was the brother of Bhatt Kalat, the great Kashmir Shavite scholar of the fame of Spanda Shastras.
Pandashastra.
But what Bhattalolat said, how is ras produced? He said that it is produced by imitation. Cause and effect, it is a causal thing. Causal means there are the stimulants and there are the, these, there is, he didn't mention the, but he said they awaken in you, there are the ancillary states of mind, they all combine, directly command to give you, to awaken, to arouse rust from art to life. So rust is a product, direct product of these things, cause and effect. You see, it's an imitation. So he gave this theory that rust is basically, it lies in the writer. It was a great point he made, that rust basically lies in the writer, and then the other vibhavs and anubhavs and ancillary these sentiments, they arouse it directly as cause and effect. Now this thing became the basis of controversy. There was Shankuk. Shankuk said this is not the case. It is not directly. See, you can't have directly that you read a book and you have ras, or you see a drama, you have ras. Directly, it doesn't happen. It is basically an aesthetic process. So what is done is, he said, it is the abiding state of mind, the sanchar, the sthai bhav is awakened by inference. We infer. How do we infer? He gives the example of a painted horse. He says everybody knows that the painted horse is not an actual horse, but everybody looks at him as horse. He represents the horse. He is the horse. a painted horse also. Or just as there is smoke coming from the mountain tops, when the smokes come from the mountain tops, you infer that there is fire. So this is how ras can be produced by inference. So why Bhattalolat said that it is the direct causal effect, cause and effect. This man, Shankuk, said no, it is by inference. Then there was a third person who said no, it is not even that. You see, it is, I told you about Dolat and Shankuk, and then the other man came, Bhattanayak. Bhattanayak says no.
But I,
Bhattanayak, he said, there are two powers of expression in a poet, in a person, in a work of art. One is this bhavanatmak, bhojak and bhoj. You enjoy it because you have these powers, because words have these powers. You see, the, the feelings, they are independent. What you can't feel, you can't have awaken the aesthetic feeling by what the actors do. This man, Shankuk, said that we just see what the actors do, how they experience, and we identify the hero and the heroine with the actors. And we don't ask them. This man said no. We generalize, we universalize their feeling. So Ram's love for Sita is not particularized, it is generalized. It is generalized, and this he called the power of sadharnikaran, generalization. So
generalization.
through generalization, love, a particular person's love between two particular or hatred or whatever the feelings are become generalized feelings, sadharnikaran. So this was a very important input he gave. Abhinav Gupta said no, this is not so. He accepted the idea of sadharnikaran. Yes, this happens. But he said ras is sort of an inner feeling. It's all inner.
Yes.
Something in, see, by intuition you feel.
By intuition, by higher self,
It's a transcendent feeling.
transcendent feeling, beyond consciousness,
And he
higher
says
states
that,
of consciousness.
yes, he says, he said, then there was then came Anandavardhan, he talked about dhwani, suggestion.
Anand.
He said no, there are, words have several powers. There's the denotative power, that means a straight verbal meaning, laxative meaning,
Anandvardhan is
dictionary
Anandvardhan is
meaning.
Anandvardhan is
Dictionary.
proto Abhinav Gupta. Proto Abhinav Gupta.
Who?
Anandvardhan.
No,
Anandvardhan.
Anandvardhan is, of course, yes. Yes,
Okay.
no, same time, almost.
Almost
11th
same.
century.
Okay.
Anandavardhan, of course, followed because Abhinav Gupta wrote on Anandavardhan.
And Utpal Deva, yes, he wrote on Anandvardhan. And
Abhinav Gupta
Utpal Deva
wrote on Anandavardhan, so naturally Anandavardhan comes before.
from before, and Utpal Deva as
Yeah,
well.
this,
Utpal Deva and other people.
same is with the Utpal, he also comes before. Utpal is the
Soma
grand
Deva.
master, great grand master of Abhinav Gupta. Abhinav Utpal's
Theory of
disciple,
recognition. Theory of recognition.
Utpal's disciple was Lakshman Gupta, and Lakshman Gupta's disciple was Abhinav Gupta.
Abhinav Gupta. And in between there is Soma Deva, somebody else.
Yes, he wrote Shivadrishti. He
Shivadrishti.
was the person
Soma
who
Deva.
laid the foundation of this कहते हैं इसको Pratibhigya. Pratibhigya philosophy of cognition and recognition.
Cognition, recognition. Yeah. Shiva.
Recognition does not mean memory. You don't remember something, but you cognize it. Recognition. You cognize again that this is your true nature. That your true nature is the same as that of Shiva. And who is Shiva? Shiva is not a human person personality out there, but the pure
Consciousness.
undifferentiated consciousness,
Consciousness.
which
Ultimately,
is
it's
one,
subtle. It's one.
which is one. And this Shiva is this consciousness is congealed. It is congealed, it is frozen, and man becomes the project. So the three are related. Narashakti Shivatmakam Trikaha. Trik is
Shakti.
three
Yeah.
times triad. So first see there is Shiv, who's pure consciousness.
Pure.
Then through
Unmanifested.
his cosmic creative energy,
Shakti.
Shakti. You see, they themselves manifest themselves as the universe. So the universe is not different from Shiva.
As
And
per the Shastra now.
but Shiva plays hide and seek with himself.
He forgets.
He is everything. He is the world. He is the manifested phenomenal world, and he is
I,
both. He is transcendental also, and he is immanent also. But he plays because of his power of Maya. He congeals himself. So we are all human beings are Shiva in amnesia. We are all Shiva. We are the same thing, but in amnesia we are forgotten. And this forgetting, this hide and seek, is again because of Shiva himself. He
Shiva.
himself plays the trick.
It's like that.
He
It's like
he
that.
of he has
It's like that Stanislavskian
one of his
actor who
one of his
performs a role. It's like
one of his
a Stanislavskian actor who performs a character and becomes the character. Forgets that he's an actor.
yes.
It's
So
like
one
the
of
same.
his powers is obscuration.
Okay.
He manifests the. Sorry,
Yes, please.
is it
Yeah,
too much?
we need to continue. I mean, should we just slightly sharpen it and come down to the nucleus of our entire discussion? Anything else you want to
No, no,
add
we
on?
can. I can also, and there's no problem. But I think
Yes.
it has to be kept on because the basic thing has not been touched.
Let's touch the basic thing now, please. But
No,
in a
I was
please, please.
towards it. We were talking of the rasa theory. We were
Okay.
talking of what Bhattalolat said that rasas see awakened because of what? Rasas awakened because of this. Sthai
There was some.
bhava is not. He says sthai bhava and rasa is the same thing. Sthai
Hmm.
bhava means abiding mental state. Shringar, Hasya, Karun,
Karna,
Rodra, Veer,
Rodra, Rodra Ras.
not Karna but Karun. So all these are actually abiding mental states, but they become aesthetic emotions when only aroused in conjunction with these other things, other ingredients. So that was their idea. Uh, so what I mean to say is that we talked about this fellow, this what Narayan we said. We talked about the sadharanikaran, you see. We talked how
Just a small intervention.
what happens according to Abhinavgupta, what happens, you see.
Sort of small intervention. Just a small intervention.
Yeah, please.
Slightly, I want to take you slightly forward, although that's not the scope
Yeah,
of
yeah.
today's program.
So I mean, as you please.
Because you are an expert on Laleshwari as well. What I want to say as a linguist, let's come down to the language, the Vak and Vasun of Laleshwari. And as a linguist, what you have been talking till now in this program, how do you connect it with Laleshwari? Are there exotic influences over there? Or it is just the evolution of what had happened earlier, what you were explaining earlier? Laleshwari,
Well,
only Laleshwari.
there are many aspects to it.
Yeah.
First is the aspect of our ideological leanings. There are many things about Laleshwari we don't understand, we don't even know.
Shiva, Shiv
What
Sadhika
she
as
has,
well.
what she has, we must know that there's a fusion of the poet and
Mystic.
the, the mystic in her.
That's true.
The mystic alone does not make Laleshwari. Every mystic is not a Laleshwari.
She's a many dimension sociologist. She's a
So
sociologist.
unless you have this thing, the power of the speech, see how beautifully she puts her views. Kesari one volum writ shall. I dragged the lion from his den as if he were a jackal. See how power packed this line is. And there are many other power packed lines from her.
What I'm saying is that language of Laleshwari,
Yes,
in
yes.
context
So
of what we have been
what is
talking
the
right now.
language? You just
Yeah.
read the language yourself. All the words, except some words which have been interpolated later, are
Interpolation
Sanskrit.
happens. Yeah,
They are Sanskrit.
they are purely Sanskrit.
Read any of her verses. Read the very word walk. It's not walk. In Kashmiri, the final ka becomes
Walk,
kha.
walk.
Final ka is walk. And walk again, is actually a form, literary form, which is
Vyakhya.
just like the Doha.
Does it come from
So
Vyakhya? Vyakhya?
no, it is walk itself. Why from? Why not walk itself?
Walk itself. Okay.
You see, when we talk of Shiva as Prakash and Vimarsh
Prakash.
means when consciousness is conscious of itself as consciousness. That means conscious, not consciousness who doesn't know about. It's not just light. It's a light which is conscious that it is light.
I am.
That is Vimarsh. So this consciousness, from this consciousness has language arisen.
Oh.
You see. So Laleshwari's language is the language in which her predecessors wrote. You just read Utpalacharya's Shiv Stotravali.
Shiv Sutra.
You read Bhattanarayan's work. क्या है उसका नाम और क्या है वो मुझे नाम याद नहीं आता है तो Bhattanarayan and this both fellow they wrote devotional poetry, but this devotional poetry was of the kind in which the basic unity, the basic non-duality of the world, between the immanent and the transcendent, between Shiva and Shakti is not forgotten, but is taken. It's called Samavesh. It is being immersed in the universal. When your individual consciousness is immersed in the universal consciousness, that is called Samavesh, and that is the bhakti that Laleshwari also had. So, and that is the terminology that Laleshwari used.
Language,
You give
yes.
me language throughout is Sanskrit.
Yes, I understand. Now let's move back to we'll talk about Laleshwari later. We have already talked about it, and let's move down to the loose ends of our previous conversation. Wherever you missed on, let's fill those voids here.
Well, now, see, what I wanted to say
Because now we are already 2.5 hours.
About Laleshwari also. I want to say one thing. It is generally said that Laleshwari gave up Sanskrit, the language of the elites, and she wrote in Kashmiri.
No, that's nonsense. That's
was
nonsense.
Kashmiri a total different language?
It was the same language. It was the same language.
Why? It shows that there was no resistance of rejecting Sanskrit. Sanskrit was not rejected. It is only evolution of a language. So
that was a different context than the
during
satire.
her time, Kashmiri had reached a stage, in which she has expressed herself. And the words that we see, which are laden with some Persian words and Arabic words, they have been interpolated.
They are interpolated later on.
That's
Because in
interpolation.
times, these words didn't exist. Yeah, they didn't exist.
So what to do with interpolations?
We cannot do anything.
So there was no, and this is not the case with Laleshwari alone.
Nandaresh also.
No, I'm not talking of Kashmiri. Even in South, you see, they took everything from Sanskrit, even in Tamil language, you see. Everything, they accepted it. There was a dialogue. There was not a state of conflict. It is shown as if there was a
But
state of
I tell you, Shashi Shekhar ji,
conflict. There was no
Professor
state
Saab,
of conflict.
I tell you, because I'm a lot of wanderer and South मेरा बड़ा favorite destination रहा है. I just tell you one thing. Whenever you talk to a South Indian scholar, well-read personality, when you tell them that the Sanskrit is our grandmother, they resist. They say no, Sanskrit is our cousin. This is I have seen in Malayalis. This is I have seen in
You
Kannats.
see,
This is I have seen in
this
Tamils
is
as well.
this
They
is
think that it's at
lingu-
par with us. It's our contemporary. It's a contemporary language.
this is linguistic chauvinism.
What
What is the case? They have Tamil, Telugu, and
Kannada, Malayalam, Kannada.
Malayalam and all these other languages, they have borrowed, taken a lot from Sanskrit language as well as Sanskrit literature.
That's true. That's true.
The entire
Well,
theory of language we were talking about just now is an all India theory.
this was created by
This aesthetic theory.
it was created by the politicians like Dravid, DMK, and other people. They
Yes,
created
yes,
this.
yes,
They
yes.
separated this
How do you say
Indian
they were
identity
separate?
with something different, something local. Yeah,
It was created by colonial historians
first colonial
and
historian,
then later by the left leaning historians.
absurd historians.
They are both of them are responsible for the state,
Anyway, sir,
the
let's move on. 2.5 hours.
colonial mindset that
2.5 घंटे
created all
हो
this.
गए कौशर बट बिचौर बेचार वो खाने
मैं
के लिए
तो
तरस रहे होंगे.
मैंने तो सोचा अभी शुरू भी नहीं किया हमने.
नहीं
मैंने तो
मुझे तो
सोचा अभी
I will go on and on. I'm a theater person. मुझे कोई
no
issue
no
नहीं
no
है. I
no
can
no
continue
no
with you.
no no.
But I'm saying now we have to say somewhere we have to conclude it and make it
नहीं नहीं
pivotal.
ऐसा नहीं है, लेकिन बेसिक ये है कि देखिए नाट्य शास्त्र कहाँ था. नाट्य शास्त्र से फिर और स्कूल्स आए कश्मीर में. द
भरत
रीति
मुनि या
स्कूल,
अपने को
द अलंकार स्कूल, द औचित्य स्कूल,
औचित्य
the
school.
Vakrokti school, all these schools were founded in Kashmir. All the building blocks of Indian aesthetic theory, all I'm saying, are from Kashmir. It is
And
it gives an overwhelming feeling.
there's
All the
nothing.
building blocks of
Nobody
Indian
can deny
aesthetic
this fact
theory
that our
has
Sanskrit
it.
literature
No, it's
main
not just
contribution is
matter
that
of
of Kashmir
Sanskrit.
as well.
It is a
Yeah.
matter of aesthetic theory also. And the southern states also, the southern languages also accepted this. Do you know that there has been a constant dialogue between Kashmir Shaivism and the Shaivism of South? Do you know? I mean, they have always been, even in Maharashtra, you have Sant Gyaneshwar. Sant Gyaneshwar, you see, was inspired, was in dialogue, was actually in a way of accepted what Kashmir Shaivism said. He was in dialogue with it. So were the Veer Shaivites.
Even for that matter, Akka Mahadevi was
So were
similar
the
as
Veer
Ganeshwar.
Shaivites. The
Akka Mahadevi was a
36,
Shiva. Mallikarjun.
the
Mallikarjun was Shiva. Yeah.
I mean, with this is a
Anyway,
separate
let's
thing, very interesting also. So we can talk
we
about
can
it
have the third
next
we can have the
next
third
time.
session with you, sir. Third
Next
session
time,
with
I
you.
don't know how it went. I don't know.
It went very well, sir. You look very handsome, and your knowledge is there already. Wisdom is there. So, I think it was so wonderful. We talked so wonderfully,
No,
and
but I also want to emphasize one thing. There is
yes,
no insulation, there is no isolation. The tradition is the same, and the fountainhead of the tradition was Kashmir. That is
that's
why I said that the aesthetic theory, which was accepted at all India level, the Indian aesthetic theory, the Indian literary theory came from Kashmir.
because that's why it's rightly said it's about the Silicon Valley. All the great minds went there and they recreated. They recreated the things because there
So
are some things.
all the building blocks come from Kashmir, except two or three great scholars. All the original philosophers of this
Philosophers, yeah.
who built this aesthetic theory
Kashmir
were
and
from
around,
Kashmir.
Kashmir and around, for that matter.
They were all
Thank you
Kashmir.
very much, sir. Should we conclude now?
As you please, as you please. I can't say.
Thank Thank you
But
very much.
I feel there should be a sequel to it.
We'll have a third sequel, certainly. We'll have a third sequel. And I think today, because we had some situation, we wanted to do it on YouTube, but it didn't
I
work.
see, I see, I see.
Comment gen-
No
So
problem.
I then later on shifted to the Facebook. So people joined later. But this is an archival kind of a document, and people can just approach it, visit it, do the research, and get the pearls and the wisdom, whatever you have. Subscribe into this today's conversation. So it was great honor, sir. You came. I wish you a
Thank you,
long
sir.
life,
Thank you.
and we have
Thanks a
very
lot.
third conversation,
Oh,
and we
time
will not
बहुत आगे है, I never know.
we will not swim around in the ocean. We'll go into some beautiful, tributary, some beautiful tributary, and swim around that. So let us see how that will be in the next conversation. Thank you very much. You came. It was a
Okay,
great
thank you.
pleasure. बहुत मजा आया. बहुत
So,
enlightened. We feel enlightened. We feel enriched by your
so
presence.
nice to talk to you. So although it went a bit haphazardly, I think, but
Doesn't matter.
that's the way conversation goes.
That's the way conversation goes. And
You can't have.
my interruptions as usually. I mean, they were
No,
like the,
they were quite okay. I mean, I liked them because see,
like a
unless
child.
you talk, no, unless there's a conversation, it's not a monologue.
It's not a monologue. That's true. That's true,
It's
sir.
not a monologue.
You are a treasure
Okay.
trove, sir. We'll definitely approach
Thank
you
you, sir.
once again for
Thank
our
you, sir. Thank
basking
you.
into the knowledge of
Thank you,
your
sir.
son.
Thank you.
So thank
Thank
you
you,
very
sir.
much. You came.
Okay.
Best wishes.
Right.
Good luck.
Nice. Bye.
We'll see
Goodbye.
you next time. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, Mar. So you see, that was a wonderful conversation. Second part with Dr. Shashi Shekhar Toshkhani, Professor Shashi Shekhar Toshkhani. He is an ocean of knowledge. I think it is easier, although I always consider Mark Duzewski to talk with Mark Duzewski, but he's a Chevist class. I mean, he has a specialization in that. So you cannot just beat him. You can swim all the way from one point to another point to one. Shashi Shekhar Tashkani. He is one of the highest and greatest and well-read, scholarly, authentic, research-based, profound knowledge and wisdom, ranging from spirituality to the aesthetics, to the traditions, to the poetry, to the history, to the many wonderful, amazing, astounding base of the civilization, Indian civilization in this part of the country known as Kashmir. Kashmir, for its because it has always been known as crown of Indian civilization. So there is nothing, and it's very harmful to say that we are proud. We are not proud. It's our esteem. It's all Indian, irrespective of whatever religion we follow, irrespective of whatever color we have, irrespective of whatever traditions we have. This is our strength, that we have a great legacy. So today's great day was a great day, and although I had some technical snacks today, I wanted to take this channel to the YouTube completely. But people, it's very difficult to change the habits of the people. So nobody could join in the YouTube excepting Avatar Motaji, my dear friend. And so I had to finally, after 45 minutes, come back to the Facebook, so that at least the dedicated, the most, devoted subscribers, admirers, and followers of this program don't miss today's this opportunity to witness this conversation. So that is so wonderful, and I feel that today we have been able to go into the many different arenas. And before I close, I would like to just say something about, because he talked about Amir Khusro. So I'll just have some couplets from Amir Khusro, because it is from Amir Khusro's tradition when he recognized first time Kashmiri. खुसरो दरिया प्रेम का, खुसरो दरिया प्रेम का, उल्टे वा की धार, वा मतलब हवा होती है, धार, खुसरो दरिया प्रेम का, उल्टे वा की धार, जो उतरा सो डूब गया, जो डूबा सो पार, खुसरो पाती प्रेम की, बिरला बांचे कोई, खुसरो पाती प्रेम की, बिरला बांचे कोई, वेद कुरान पोथी पढ़े, प्रेम बिना का होय. Without love, these literature, these great wisdoms, worldly wisdoms, they are of no meaning. And खुसरो बाजी प्रेम की, मैं खेलूंगी पी के संग, खुसरो बाजी प्रेम की, मैं खेलूंगी पी के संग, जीत गई तो पिया मोरे, हारी पी के संग. Thank you very much with that wonderful couplet of Amir Khusro, one of the great pioneer and a great abutment of this Bhakti movement, Indian Bhakti movement. Amir Khusro ji, we conclude this program. Sorry for today's disruptions, technical disruptions, but it is said that wherever there is a flower, even underneath a stone, butterflies they reach to that particular scent. So all of you joined and searched for it, and finally we were here together. Thanks a lot. Good night.